Bonjour, good morning, and welcome to this panel. Welcome everybody to the Roundtable on Energy and Circular Economy, which is taking place within the framework of the third annual Canada-Italy Forum on Artificial Intelligence. As you may have heard earlier, my name is Enrico Davide Cremonese, and I am a Senior Director of Product Management at Ivado Labs. As a graduate in energy economics and a long-time proponent of including technology considerations to the ESG and social responsible principles, this panel is particularly close to my heart. Italy, Canada, and in particular Quebec are leaders in the energy transition and circular economy movements. I will be eagerly listening to the upcoming roundtable. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Elizabeth Shirt, Managing Director at Globe Series, who will be introducing our speakers and moderating the roundtable. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Sustainable Energy and Circular Economy Roundtable session of the Canada-Italy Business Forum on Artificial Intelligence. Before we begin, I believe it's important to acknowledge that many of us joining this virtual dialogue from Canada are settlers on land that is the traditional, ancestral, and often unceded territory of a diversity of Indigenous peoples, including First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. This act of acknowledging the land and the signed treaties where applicable is an act of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in Canada and is an expression of respect and gratitude for the land. And this action is to remind us that our places of work, where we live and where we gather, are on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples who historically resided here and still presently do. I myself have the privilege of joining you today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, also known as Vancouver. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to be digging into the important topic of how artificial intelligence and digitalization can help contribute to a more sustainable future. Specifically, we're going to hear from an incredible range of leaders, experts, and solution providers about the role of AI in driving a clean energy transition and enabling a more circular economy. Well, we're going to begin today's session with a set of context-setting interviews that will help us understand the current state of energy transition and circular economy in Canada and Europe, and the role that digitalization is playing. And we'll discuss the critical role of innovation and collaboration in ensuring artificial intelligence is an enabler of a more sustainable future. From there, we're going to hear from two diverse panels, the first bringing together experts from Italy and the second bringing together experts from Canada, who will dig into some of the barriers to advancing AI and some of the incredible solutions being explored. And at the end of the session, we'll bring all these panelists together for an inspiring and action-oriented speed round of questions. Throughout the 2 hours and interspersed between the interviews and panels, you're going to have the chance to hear from a series of solution providers giving spark talks, concrete use cases of where digitalization is advancing a clean energy transition and a more circular economy. All that to say, we've got an incredible jam-packed 2 hours ahead of us. So let's get started. It's my pleasure now to invite to the virtual stage our first interviewee, Mathieu Johnson, Senior Director, Corporate Strategy, Partnerships and Development at Hydro-Québec. Mathieu, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
It's wonderful to have you. So I just want to start by setting the stage, Mathieu. Can you talk a little bit about what is the current state of energy transition in Canada and Quebec?
Sure. So in a nutshell, the current state is that we are systematically missing the targets that we've been setting since Kyoto in the 90s. At some point, and I don't want to be negative here, but we believe that setting in even more ambitious targets that are very far in time will help us get where we need to be. More precisely, Canadian federal government recently updated its climate strategy and sets important new target for greenhouse gas emissions reduction. By 2030, the plan is to reduce emissions by a minimum of 32%, with a goal to be completely carbon neutral by 2050. And let me be clear, both commitments are critical to avoid the worst outcomes of climate change. However, achieving this magnitude of emissions reduction will require significant action in a very, very short period of time, especially if we want to meet our target in 2030. In Quebec, we have about the same targets, but we are in a very different position because we already started the energy transition many decades ago. We already have 100% renewable electricity, but it brings different challenges. Now, the big question is, do we think this time we will meet the targets for 2030 and 2050? I'll provide you just a few things that I believe are required in order to achieve this transition. First, like any jurisdiction, the first thing that we need to prioritize is energy efficiency. We need to keep in mind that the best and the cheapest energy is the one you do not consume. This is a challenge everywhere in Canada, as we consume over 5 times what the world average consumes. And compared to Italy, it is 3 times more energy, meaning you Italians might have some solutions and ideas for us Canadians on how we should use our energy more efficiently. The second thing is to take our electricity and make it greener. There is no point of having a Tesla if you use electricity that was generated with coal. And unfortunately in Canada, some provinces are still using coal and natural gas to produce power. So we need to address this issue very rapidly to make sure that we can move forward with the electrification of our economy. And this is the third thing that we need to do, is to increase the share of electricity in the overall energy mix. So that is what we call the electrification of our economy. In other words, reducing our dependence on burning fossil fuels. Oil and gas account for nearly 2/3 of Canada's primary energy demand. So reducing the carbon footprint implies a fundamental shift towards electrification, renewable electricity, and clean fuels. I'll stop there. I would say that those are the 3 main priorities in order to address the energy transition. And I would say that the state of the nation in Canada is to tackle those three issues in priority.
Perfect. Thanks, Mathieu. Great start. I wonder, could we dig into, what are 1 or 2 of the very specific barriers you see? You talked about, we've set some aggressive targets. That's really important to success. What are some of and you talked about some of the high level areas we need to take action. What do you see as some of the, specific barriers to meeting those targets and moving forward with energy transition in Quebec and Canada?
I think, and I don't want to be too strong here, but I think that the elephant in the room for Canada is that any climate change policy must come to terms with tremendous impact from carbon-intensive industries in the energy sector, specifically oil and gas. So the extraction and distribution of oil and gas accounts for more than 1/4 of all Canada's GHG emissions. So we need to address this. But when we take that into account, you realize it's not only an energy transition, it is an economic transition as well, where some markets and some jurisdictions will have to reinvent their activities. So this is one of the biggest challenges that Canada has to address. But there are 2 other important barriers that are true for Canada and everywhere in the world, and that will need to be addressed. And those 2 barriers are costs and behaviors. Energy transition has a cost, and whether we like it or not, the reality is that very few people are willing to pay extra for it. We've seen it in France with the yellow shirts. At some point, people were not able to pay extra for it. So this extra cost has to be taken into account. And the same logic applies in terms of behavior. Unfortunately, even if we would replace all gasoline cars with electric cars, we would not have solved our problem. We would still need to extract cobalt, lithium, and other precious metals to build batteries and other auto components. that are still emitting. So if we want to reduce GHG and fight climate change, we need to change our consumption habits, ban single-use goods, reduce meat consumption, use more public transport and less private cars. And this, I can guarantee you, it's not very popular because it affects the way we live and our behaviors. Nevertheless, it is required. And the last thing that I would mention about the barriers are the technological problems. All the technologies that are required to do the energy transition do not exist yet. Solar and wind are fantastic source of energy. But what do you do when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing? You just don't use electricity? No, it's not going to happen. So you need to have storage to compensate for the hours when there is no production. And this is key for the future of the energy transition, to tackle and address and find solutions for storage and to balance every minute, hour, day, week, month, over sometimes multiple years, the seasonality of the electricity production.
This is a great segue, Mathieu, because I do want to get into, of course, some of those specific solutions. And when we think about being here at the Canada-Italy Forum, all about collaboration and innovation, what are some of those potential solutions that you're excited to be exploring?
The first one, if we want to address the behavior problem, is education and energy literacy. The more the people will understand the issues and potential solutions, the more they will act on it. The other thing is we need to fund clean technology demonstration to address the technology barrier. So in order to have the technologies that will serve us in 2040 and in 2050, we need to start demonstrating them today, but in a more coordinated and with increased collaboration. So we need to federate our efforts towards common goals and to make sure we do not duplicate ourselves. And the last thing is AI, algorithms. I'm not an expert here, but I know that those are probably one of the best levers that we can use in order to accelerate the R&D efforts to develop new materials that will improve efficiencies and drive costs down and perhaps help develop solutions that will be more friendly from a consumer perspective.
Thanks, Mathieu. I'm not an expert either, and I'm excited to be here today. And I know we're going to hear from some incredible experts and solution providers coming up right away. So I so appreciate your time this morning or this afternoon, depending where you are. Last question for you, Mathieu, before I invite you to take a break from the camera. What's one piece of advice you'd offer? What's a call to action that you'd have for our audience for moving forward with the successful energy transition?
I guess that I would say that the challenges that we are facing are global and we have limited resources. So this is my background in economy that is speaking. So let's not duplicate ourselves. Let's make sure that we leverage each of our expertise and funding opportunities. It doesn't make sense to have a team in Montreal and another one in Italy working on the same problem and not collaborating together. So we need to bridge to make sure that those bridges are there and the flow of information are there. And one thing that we need to take into account, and I think this is a good spin on how we can make sure that we create value in the energy transition, because sometimes it can be a little bit depressing. But one thing that we need to take into account and realize is that even if Canada and Italy achieve carbon neutrality tomorrow, it won't solve anything. There's India, there's China, there's so many other big countries that are polluting much more than us. Global warming will continue. We are too small, but we can still have a great impact on society. We together can pave the way and show the world the example to follow. And the example to follow is the way we will collaborate together. Two advanced countries that are facing challenges that at some point all countries will face. So nothing should prevent us from working together to solve common issues. And that will serve as an example and hopefully inspire the world the way to go. So my key takeaway here is let's make sure that we collaborate together and we do that in an open manner.
Mathieu, thank you so much. What a great way to set the stage with some urgency, but also some inspiration. You're free to leave the virtual stage now, but please enjoy the rest of our great speaker lineup. Up next, I'm thrilled to introduce Ilaria, Head of Project Management at the Lombardy Green Chemistry Association. Ilaria, welcome to the virtual stage, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. It is a very great pleasure to be here with you today and spoken about circular economy and bioeconomy. It is a very good pleasure.
We're thrilled to have you, Ilaria. So again, I want to start with some context setting. Can you tell us a little bit about what's the current state of circular economy in Europe, Italy, and in the Lombardy region where you focus? And happy to hear from your point of view focused in bioeconomy.
Yes, of course. I prepared just on a couple of slides. I don't know if it's possible to share this one, the first one. Thank you. So by mobilizing a total of 1 trillion euros in sustainable investment over the next decade, Europe aims to ensure a substantial acceleration of the green transition. The path towards climate neutrality is ensured by the European policy and local governments' commitment to circular economy, bioeconomy, and COVID-19 recovery as well. Over the past 15 years, this approach has resulted in a growing attitude of all manufacturing sector to adopt more sustainable models in designing, producing, disposal, and upcycling processes. The increase in material recovery and feedback into the economy, the overall use of materials is measurable through the circularity rate, an indicator developed by Eurostat. A high rate of circularity means that primary raw materials are replaced to a greater extent by secondary materials. The European circularity rate was 11.9% in 2019, an increase of 3.5 points compared to 2004. Recycling rates have generally increased, particularly in the construction and packaging sector, thanks to a more efficiency products and process design. With an added value of 614 billion euros, 70.5 million employees, and over 2 trillion euros of turnover, the European bioeconomy is considered one of the most powerful tools to turning bio-waste streams into high added value bio-based products. Among the Italian regions, Lombardy is in a virtuous case of boosting bioeconomy innovation up. It mobilized over 50 billion euros in turnover, over 43,000 employees, and over 500 million in research and innovation by companies operating in bio-based products, design and commercialization. The transition towards an economy with a low environmental impact is a priority for Lombardy, which has adopted a regional law for innovation, an observatory for circular economy, and a regional strategy for sustainable development. It mobilized nearly 100 public and private stakeholders and has stimulated so far over 250 actions to achieve a low carbon economy following the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal.
Ilaria, great stage setting, thank you. Can you talk about what you see as some of the key barriers to enabling an even more circular economy? And you're off to a great start, which is exciting.
Yeah, of course. An effective green transition can only be possible through the involvement of all players in supply chain, with a fair economic returns for all. Despite the general recognition of the strategic contribution of circular economy and the bioeconomy in tackling climate change, the affordable application of cutting-edge digital solution is not yet a widespread reality, especially among the small companies. Reducing the risk of green investment and enhancing access to finance for small and medium-sized enterprises are also two obstacles to the widespread diffusion of advanced technologies in traditional manufacturing sectors. Finally, the lack of transparency and traceability regarding the products and their environmental impact, components, substances, represent a barrier along the supply chain. While traceability tools and solutions already exist, all actors would need to be more involved, from suppliers of raw materials to the recyclers and, of course, producers, for such solution to roll out. Furthermore, such solutions should be designed in such a way that all actors in the supply chain can adopt them, including small businesses that do not have large capacity or technological know-how.
Awesome, Ilaria, thank you. You've given us a great overview of some of those barriers and some ways we might start to address them. Do you have any other sort of specific examples of solutions that we could apply to really start addressing those barriers? And of course, again, as we think about bringing people together from Canada and Italy today, what's the role of collaboration, innovation, and specifically of digitalization in overcoming some of those barriers?
Yes, please, can we move to the next slides? I prepared just some facts and figures about the role of artificial intelligence can help to achieve this goal. Regional policy and incentives play a fundamental role in green transition, which should be based on measuring the innovation potential of the most advanced application according to the local industry ecosystem. At the same time, continuous monitoring of material flow can contribute to shaping a low carbon economy by exploiting the full potential of local resources. The efficiency use of renewable biological resources, for example, find a strategic role in artificial intelligence, helping to strengthen primary production and resilience of food system. Internet of Things and big data are integrated to the next in the so-called Internet of Farming, which extends more digital system to the entire company dimension, reducing cost and improving production quality and traceability. Can we share the next slides, please? In Italy, for example, the 73% of smart farming solutions use data and analytics, 57% of process software system and use interfaces, and 41 Internet of Things. Solutions that coexist simultaneously are mainly oriented to the management of manufacturing data. I'm choosing to talk about Internet of Things apply in the farming and primary producers, since there is a huge potential in these areas. This is a strong reality in Lombardy, but the next step will concern to increase a planning solution and the integration of all technologies within farms and along the supply chain. Finally, the potential of AI is crucial to ensure transparency and traceability of systems based on circular economy approach. Finally, products labels can act as a reliable source of information on the environmental impact and products and increase the attitude of consumers to choose products made through more circular process.
Ilaria, what a great set of examples for how we can start to move forward with solutions. It's been so wonderful to have you with us this morning. I want to give you the chance to also leave our audience with a piece of advice or a call to action. What would you ask our audience to do if we want to look at moving forward with a more circular economy? What piece of advice would you give?
So making synergies between all players in the supply chain operation has a great potential to accelerate the adoption of circular economic model. In this context, local governments play a crucial role in enhancing innovation based on local renewable resources by prompting short supply chains, partnership that bringing together all actors, primary producers, and final users can be useful, supported by solution for monitoring the effective use of recycling raw materials. At the same time, roadmaps based on indicators of innovation potential can contribute on driving green investment towards the most advanced and promising new technologies. Finally, Lombardy boasts an ecosystem of over 200 industrial operators who today design, produce, commercialize completely bio-based products obtained through an upcycling of resources from agriculture, from urban waste and food sectors downstreams. So opportunities such the Canada-Italy Business Forum on AI actively create international cooperation corridors between clusters, regional agencies, and local governments to foster the exchange of good practices and trigger business opportunities among all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. Wonderful to have you. And you can now take a break and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you.
I'm excited to share. It's now time for our first Spark Talk, the first of 5 concrete use cases we're going to be hearing over the course of the session. And first up, I'm going to invite Annibale Guariglia, the CEO of GeoCart Spa, to take over the virtual stage for his Spark Talk. Annibale, over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you also to the organization and all the participants. I'm the GeoCart CEO, but in the past I was a technician first and then technical manager. GeoCart, can we share my presentation, please? Next one. Next one, please. Okay, GeoCart is an Italian engineering company that work in the field of Earth observation. We have more than 25 years of experience in this field. In the last years, we moved our business in corridor mapping, in particular on power line inspections. So just to share some numbers, in the last 3 years, we inspected more than 120,000 kilometers per year. So we have a quite good skill in this field. Our headquarters is located in Potenza, but we have also office in Rome, Bologna, Bucharest, Montreal, and Fortaleza in Brazil. Next one, please. We have also a quite good skill in ICT solution. In the first time, our ICT solution was just for internal use. Then we decide to share with our customer our internal facilities just to better use our data, just to improve the data exploitation. Next one, please. We are working hard in AI technology. And we are combining in just one platform, in a single platform, cloud-based, all our internal tool, just to guarantee a very quick access on a digital twin, because we are working a lot on the digitalization of asset inventory for create a digital twin. Next one, please. Another one, please. Sorry. So with the artificial intelligence tool, now we are able to identify all the components along a power line. And we are working hard to training our solution to catch also the hotspot from thermal data and to automatic classification, just to make able to do an automatic classification on LiDAR data. Next one, please. And in the same platform, we combine also satellite data. This with the aims to better identify all the vegetation near the lines, and also to have a better vegetation management system. Next one, please. How the better network management could have an impact on the environment. In my opinion, a lot of wildfires became from contact with the power lines. So a better management could be improve the surrounding environment, and also have less impact on the animals and the human health. And also, it's clear, have impact on the economics aspect. Next one, please.
Annibale, I need to jump in. We have very tight on time. Excellent. If you can do your last slide, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we share Annibale's last slide, and I'll slip off this.
It's just summary. It's just an overview on what I said. Thanks.
Please.
Thank you to everybody.
Okay. Thank you so much, Annibale. I have the very tough job of keeping an amazing set of speakers on time, and we so appreciate your presentation. It was wonderful. For our next segment, I'm pleased to invite to the screen our interviewees, Mark Kozdras, professional engineer and emeritus scientist at Natural Resources Canada in the Canmet Materials Laboratory, and Massimo Celino, staff scientist at the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development, or ENEA, where he focuses on digitalization for energy. Mark and Massimo, welcome. I'm going to dive right in. I know, Mark, you have a slide that we want to speak to first. We're going to be, again, looking to set some context on the role of innovation and collaboration with AI. Mark, starting with you, Mathieu, in his first presentation, highlighted a number of technologies to enable an energy transition. But we know that a big component of the cost of moving to clean energy, of course, is materials. What's being done globally to support materials discovery?
Yes, hello, Elizabeth. If we could have the slide come up, I'm going to introduce you to mission innovation. And it started with the Paris Accord in 2016, and it led to the development of innovation challenges to help solve climate change. The one challenge that developed was the Clean Energy Materials Challenge. And back in 2017, I was the Canadian representative for that. And early 2018, I became the co-lead, international co-lead, to drive the whole idea of a collaborative platform that you described earlier to innovate and develop the clean energy materials needed to actually mitigate climate change. I'm not sure if the slide is coming up, but I'll talk to some of the content in it. Basically, what we're doing is developing self-driving laboratories. These are robotically based laboratories that we synthesize and we characterize materials in situ. And that allows us to rapidly screen candidate materials for various applications. It could be solar cells, it could be organic LEDs. We're working on thermoelectric materials, all very important in changing and transitioning into a low carbon economy. An example of what we're trying to do is really something that an experimental platform was using 1,000 or doing 1,000 experiments using normal traditional methods. And when we applied the AI techniques to develop it, we were able to reduce that down to 30 experiments to achieve the same outcome of performance. In fact, a better performance than what we had before. So self-driving laboratories are there to accelerate the development of clean energy materials by a factor of 10. I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Thanks for starting to set the stage for us, Mark. I want to go to you, Massimo, to talk about some examples of solutions that are being explored in Europe in the materials discovery space. So Massimo, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, here I am. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, in Europe, there are several initiatives to support digitalization in the field of energy. For example, I can recall you the European Energy Research Alliance, ERA for short, that is playing a key role in this field. ERA has recently launched a new joint program on digitalization for energy. And ERA has recognized the fundamental role of digitalization to accelerate the energy transition to a carbon-free economy. When we speak about digitalization, we mean artificial intelligence, big data, high-performance computing, and the integration of these new technologies. To this end, it is now recognized that research data are a valuable asset. They have a very important value, both in the academic and the research, in the academic research and industrial research. And in this framework, artificial intelligence is able to interpret research data at the same time accelerate research, testing, and the production processes. For these reasons, recently, the European Commission has launched a roadmap for an action plan for the energy sector digitalization. Indeed, the EU believes that the digitalization of the energy sector can contribute to the creation of growth and jobs and boost the European competitiveness and innovation. In this field, ENEA, the Italian institution where I work, is now coordinating an Italian effort to build an integrated platform for the accelerated discovery of new materials for energy applications, as described before by Mark. The Italian Mission Innovation Platform will be managed by an artificial intelligence system, and it will be coordinated by high-throughput experiment and multi-scale modeling on high-performance computing infrastructures. The real power of this platform will come from the availability of large amounts of data and the ability to analyze and interpret them very quickly and efficiently. The project has just started and involves the major Italian research institutions and several experimental computational labs distributed throughout Italy.
Thank you, Massimo. Great start. And we've already started to hear about some of the exciting examples of solutions that you're exploring in Europe and in ENEA, and the role of digitalization specifically. Mark, I want to go back to you to start to dig into that a little bit more. Specifically the role of AI, big data in accelerating materials discovery in your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Elizabeth. These platforms that we're working on, these robotic platforms, are really powered by artificial intelligence, and there's multiple ways that they do that. I had it on the slide, but I wanted to take a little bit more time through this discussion to talk about that. With the amount of data that they generate, we can't possibly use that data in a meaningful way, and we want to take raw data out of the machines that sometimes get processed. That takes a long time. And so that big data analysis means that we're taking information about the characteristics of a material and digesting it, making it much, much faster and presenting it back to the experimental platform. At which point, the AI takes over and does a second thing. It starts planning the next experiment. We have a robotic system. It's just waiting for new information. And you use AI to actually search a huge experimental space that you couldn't do otherwise. Like, you can't possibly run that many experiments and that diverse of an experimental platform without having something that drives you to that next experiment. The next thing is that you accelerate simulation. So Massimo talked about high performance computing. It's critical to this, but lots of times it takes days to actually get a useful result. AI is driving that time frame down substantially. And then finally, another place AI is important is in smart robotics. It's actually teaching the robots as it goes to do things more efficiently and faster so that we get through that part and generate more data faster.
Great examples. Thanks, Mark. Massimo, anything you want to add to that in terms of those specific roles, the things that AI and big data are enabling us to do in accelerating materials discovery in your experience?
Yeah, our mission innovation platform, the Italian mission innovation platform, is now focusing on batteries, on photovoltaics, on electrolyzers, materials for electrolyzers. And we have already some results that show that artificial intelligence can accelerate substantially simulations. In the past, we made simulation by molecular dynamics simulations or atomic scale simulations by using quantum computing. And it is very computing consuming. But now with artificial intelligence, we can accelerate a lot this. But this is not only the good news. Artificial intelligence can also improve. It is able also to link different scales in materials, time scales, space scales. So you can design the materials at the atomic scales, having in mind the final use of the materials. It also improves, for example, the design of sustainable materials. There is a great impact in this field because you can design materials that are sustainable, for example, with a low amount of critical chemical elements inside. So there are many good news by using artificial intelligence in the frame of the mission innovation platform.
Fantastic. Thanks, Massimo. I'm down to my last question for each of you. I want to keep us moving and try to keep us on time for our session and get to all our great speakers. So I'm going to, Mark, I'll start with you, then go to Massimo. We're here, of course, at the Canada-Italy Forum on artificial intelligence, all about collaboration. Can you speak to some specific examples between our two countries and areas that we should be exploring going forward so that we can really make the most of the opportunity to collaborate? And Mark, I'll start with you. Number one opportunity that you'd share with our audience.
Yeah, early on in the process of the IC6, the Clean Energy Materials Innovation Challenge, we identified that we wanted to work with Italy on materials that take heat and convert it to electricity, thermoelectric materials. They have pyroelectric materials. So that's a space that we really want to look at. But we're also jointly developing a hydrogen strategy. And as a result, Massimo mentioned that hydrogen is becoming very important. I see a lot of work in that area coming up soon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Massimo, you get the last word. Share with us, what are the things that excite you about our opportunities to collaborate and work together?
I agree with Mark. There are many ways to collaborate, many topics in this field to collaborate. Yeah, for example, hydrogen, for example, batteries. We are very interested in robotics that Mark mentioned before. That's a great new technologies for the material science. We are very interested in it. So I think that we have a very valuable, important research programs. It's time to start really collaborating.
Awesome. Massimo, Mark, thank you both so very much. And to all our first set of speakers for doing a great job of setting the context for this important issue. Up next, I am thrilled to introduce Davide Montanari, head of the analytic translation team at Amagamma for our next Spark Talk. Davide, over to you.
Hi to everybody. Good morning and good afternoon to the people in Italy. Thanks for the slide. So I'm gonna go faster, try to keep the pace. So next slide, please. So just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Davide Montanari. As a little bit said, I am an energy and nuclear engineer. I started working in General Electric in the R&D field, aeronautical field, but now I am the head of the analytic translation team in Amagamma, that is the press sales team that is working with our client. Just a brief word about Amagamma. So next slide, please. Hopefully it's coming. By the way, Amagamma is a data science company. So what we do is we properly develop artificial intelligence solution for different clients in different industry. We have been founded 8 years ago. We are 65 people and we are based in Modena and in Haifa in Israel. And since the foundation, we have done more or less 200 projects based on AI solution. And today I want to go through one of that. So please, next slide. Because I want to introduce you a solution that we have developed regarding the predictive maintenance of natural gas distribution grid. So as you may guess, we are inside the energy utility sector, and this project has been carried on a proper scale. So we have worked on 20,000 kilometers of pipe that are actually serving 1 million clients across 130 municipalities. Just to make you understand, this grid is delivering 2 billion cubic meters of gas every year. That it's more or less the 3% of the total Italian consumption. So what was the challenge? So please next slide. The challenge were a lot, but mainly, as you can read on the top left of the chart, was some legislation push, because the legislator body was pushing this client to decrease the year-over-year rate of the leakage, the natural gas leakage detected by third parties, so like Tyson. This put a lot of challenge on the team planning and also to the need of, advanced prediction tool for the leakage on the grid. And just to be clear, obviously we are working under budget constraint. The process was carried out by very experienced people, and also our client were facing few problems regarding what we call data silos. So a lot of data that are spread inside the enterprise, but they may, or they don't know that they exist, or they don't use it. So what we do, I just want to show you the solution. Next slide, please. So we have developed one centralized georeference data platform with some AI solution, custom AI solution embedded on top, that we properly data enrich it with some external data that we selected during the project. And the AI solution that we have developed was built in 3 different layers. One was the prediction layer, that the goal was to predict the leakage in the next month. The second was the district clustering, because we need to schedule the best time in the year where we want to visit the pipe and patrol the grid. And third, very important, the route optimization, because obviously we want to minimize the amount of kilometers that we want to cover in order to maximize the probability to get leakage. So next slide, please. So I want to go very fast on this one, but just to make clear that from the left, we were pumping a lot of data, company data and external data, as I said, putting inside all the layering of AI algorithm. And in the end, we got an optimized planning that was pushed on board the computer of the field team that so knows where to go in order to optimize the find of the leakage. And next slide, last one. these are some results that we have measured during the use of this platform. We have seen an important decrease in leakage detected by the citizen. That was the main goal, as I said. And also we have seen an important increase in the total kilometer that were covered by the field team, taking into consideration the same side of the field team. And also we train a lot of people during this long project. What does it mean this for the society and the environment? That first of all, we have less atmospheric emission of very high global warming potential gases like the natural gas. Also, we have less wasted natural gas because you have always to keep in mind the 2 billion cubic meters delivered by this grid. So even the 0.1% of leakage is a really big number. And the third, we reduced the fuel consumption by the field team that was patrolling the grid. And the last but not the least, there has been a very important digital upskilling of the final user. So next slide, but it's finished. Thanks a lot for the attention.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. It's wonderful to hear from you, and what a great session this has been so far. My goodness. We're now moving into the second part of our program with the first of two panels, which is going to bring to the screen a group of experts from Italy who are going to help us dig in again even more into some of the barriers and opportunities for advancing AI to enable a more sustainable future. So with that in mind, I'm thrilled to welcome to the screen Laura Cutaia, researcher at ENEA, Marco De Paolis, who is responsible for Hydrogen Valley business development at SNAM, Allegra De Filippo, a postdoc researcher at the DISI Institute of the University of Bologna, Giacomo Copani, who's the cluster manager of AFIL, the Advanced Manufacturing Cluster of the Lombardy region. Welcome to all of you. Got lots of great questions we want to cover with you in this next session. And of course, we got to go quick and dig right in. So Laura, I want to start with you and just give you, 1 minute or so to describe your organization's role in advancing digitalization to enable a more sustainable future. Laura, over to you to start.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to be here. My organization is ENEA. ENEA is a public research body in Italy with more than 500 people operating there. We are working on sustainability in my department, and in particular now the focus is on circular economy. What we can do, we are working in several topics, even though me in particular, are not specialists in artificial intelligence. Nevertheless, we guess that circular economy is a very big challenge because it needs to a modification of behavior, first of all, and then the model of consumption and production. In this regard, we are working on several models on techniques and methodologies for circular economy. For example, industrial symbiosis. In this regard, artificial intelligence could be a very powerful tool to manage the big amount of data we have to manage for the circular economy. I mean, tracking the value chain of products and services, but also having in mind production, the availability of resources along the value chain and in our country, or in Europe, for example.
That's a great start, Laura. Thank you for that introduction. Marco, I want to go to you just in a minute or so. Just talk about your organization's role in advancing a more sustainable future and the role of digitalization.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm part of SNAM. SNAM is the main and largest European gas transmission operator, and actually second in the world. What SNAM is doing in terms of sustainability and then digital transformation, because the two things are pretty much linked together, is to transition from a company based on the steel of its pipelines and of its storage systems to a platform for the energy transition. So SNAM created within its organization startups, so let's say divisions focused to the main energy transition issues. One of those, which I represent directly, is hydrogen, which SNAM believes and we believe will be a cornerstone in the sustainable transition. And in terms of hydrogen, we are trying to do two things. First of all, developing and easing up the scaling of the technologies, so investing in technologies, being leader in that. And second, developing larger and larger projects from demonstration scale up to the large-scale commercial. In all this process, AI, digitalization, and all this transformation is crucial. And just going back to hydrogen, I would say that mainly we see it crucial in three main aspects. First of all, in the integration of systems. So hydrogen intrinsically is at the center of an integration between renewable energy, volatile, and the, let's say, conventional supply of fuels. So integrating it needs a lot of data power, data processing power. Second, increasing safety reliability. We are scaling up, so we need that digital twins, all those kind of technologies that will help us in getting up to safe and reliable systems. And third, and I'll close here, in material developing. So getting up new materials, designing and researching on materials for catalysts, for production of hydrogen, limiting the impact of precious and rare metals in order to drive the cost down and scaling systems up.
Thank you, Marco. Great start. Allegra, I'll ask you, do your best, 1 minute or less, just give us a sense of your organization's role in advancing AI for a more sustainable future.
Yeah, and thanks, Elizabeth, for the introduction. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. And I am Allegra de Filippo. I am a researcher at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Bologna. And our group also collaborates with the Alma AI Interdisciplinary Center of Bologna. Our research activities in the field of sustainable energy are mainly focused on energy efficiency. And generally speaking, energy efficiency aims to implement the paradigm of consume less and consume better. So we tackle this challenge with our research by considering three main goals. First, our work aims to reach a progressive decarbonization by promoting the use of renewable resources. Second, we want to improve user consumption awareness with the aim of reducing peaks of consumption. And finally, we also try to support a progressive decentralization of energy systems for generating energy close to where it is used. So to achieve these goals, our group worked to have unprecedented integration of AI techniques that, for example, span from machine learning, optimization, planning, and agent-based simulation. Thanks to this integration, we can tackle very complex decision support systems for energy sustainability, and we make possible to really use artificial intelligence for social good.
Thanks so much, Allegra. Great overview. And Giacomo, last but certainly not least, can you give us a 1 minute overview of your organization's role in moving forward digitalization for a more sustainable future?
Yes, sure. So our field is a regional technology cluster. So we are an organization that integrates the stakeholders, the manufacturing stakeholders in the region around the specialization of Lombardy region. We have more or less 150 members in our cluster among companies, research organizations, and associations. And they are really the most powerful innovators in Lombardy manufacturing. So what do we do for improving the effectiveness and the capabilities around sustainability and digitalization AI? We coordinate such stakeholders. We put them together in regional supply chains that can address such challenges. And then we represent their needs and what they do in front of the regional authorities, in principle, the regional government, that is able then to drive the right policies for them. So our role is really the role of intermediate, which aggregates stakeholders. We are organized per working group in the cluster. We call them strategic communities. We have a strategic community on circular economy. We have one on artificial intelligence. And with our strategic communities, we elaborate the roadmaps, the strategic roadmaps for Lombardy region. For example, we have now in Lombardy the roadmap on circular economy that was approved by the regional government. We were the technical coordinators of that, but all the clusters participated. And now we are closing the experience of the roadmap on artificial intelligence.
Great overview. Thanks, Giacomo. Laura, I'm going to come back to you. We had a great overview of your organization. I'd love, Laura, if you could give us one example, your top example of a critical barrier that your organization is looking at overcoming, or a solution that you're advancing, so we can see transition to a more circular economy and sustainable future. So Laura, one great example of a barrier or solution that you're looking to address.
Yeah, as you know, probably in Europe, we are facing with the Circular Economy Action Plan and also with the Green Deal. These big strategies and targets have to deal also with some problems, some limits. The limits are in particular about the availability of resources, of primary resources, because Europe, as you know, depends on critical raw materials and also on materials in general from outside. And this is one point. The other point is that while we are working on energy efficiency, we have also tried to avoid to move the impact from one point to another point of the circular value chain, of the value chain of the energy. I mean, moving the impacts from the use phase to the production phase of raw materials. So what we are doing in ENEA is working on methodologies and on technologies for recovery secondary materials from urban mining, which can be a very big potential for recovery materials, but also for being a little bit more sustainable in the future, in order to try to get the target posed by Circular Economy Action Plan and also by the Green Deal for the next 10 years.
Thank you so much, Laura. Great example. Marco, I'm going to go to you next. Working in the hydrogen space, can you give an example, your favorite example of a barrier or a solution that your organization is advancing in that area?
So actually, I would say, thank you very much. Actually, I would say that the biggest barrier, the biggest challenge as far as hydrogen is concerned is time. Okay, so we need to take a technology and a technological environment that is still in the very early stage of its development up to scale at a very fast pace. So what are we doing in terms of helping the environment and the ecosystem to grow? We are trying to put all our assets in terms economically and in terms of physical assets into the play. So what we're doing, we have invested in technology. We have invested $500 million last year in two of the main players in the hydrogen production ecosystem, ITM Power and ENEA. And what are we also doing is trying to gather up, and that's also in terms of digital transformation, in terms of all those technologies that would apply to hydrogen, gathering up expertise, startups, technical excellence, close to SNAM, and that's true. What are we doing with the accelerator program? Gathering startups and then accelerate them, but not just giving them, let's say, an economical advantage or an economical chip, let's say, but putting the platform that SNAM is at disposal of these startups and these technological developers, meaning literally get them to play around, let's say, with our infrastructure, integrating POCs into the fields, and also give them the chance to develop and to collaborate on projects that we are carrying forward internationally in Italy and abroad.
Thank you so much, Marco. Allegra, same question. And man, I'm enjoying hearing about all these incredible solutions being moved forward. Can you give us your favorite example, the best example of something your organization is working on, a barrier you're looking to overcome, and a solution you're advancing?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. And so in our case, artificial intelligence has impacted a lot of applications. And in this case, we work on decision support systems for energy sustainability. And generally, the goal of decision support system is to help people to make decisions. And when a decision has to be made, several key aspects should be taken into account. So, for example, in the sustainable energy domain, we have three main pillars: the environment, the society, and the economy. And often these pillars are also conflicting one with each other. And one of the main barriers is the effective integration of all key aspects in a single and holistic model. And our research group is working on integrated AI decision support system for the definition of sustainable energy policies that combine information about, for example, energy consumption and users' behavior with pricing schemes and business models to define high-level policy for energy efficiency. And in this case, another critical barriers concerns data access and control, obviously, for AI algorithms.
Perfect. Thanks, Allegra. Giacomo, can you give me an example of a barrier or a solution that your organization is advancing in this space so we can move towards a more sustainable future?
Yeah, well, in our perspective, the major barrier is fragmentation of the ecosystem. AI and circular and sustainability in manufacturing, they are so wide and so multidisciplinary topics that they cannot be addressed in isolation, but we have to put together different types of stakeholders from the research, academia, industrial world, and also from different sectors. Think about circular economy. The output of one sector can become the input in another, but also think about AI. We assisted in the last year at the Paradox because the topic was technology pushed, and there are many companies, especially SMEs, that do not know why and how it can be useful in their business processes. So we have to put together the community of developers, of the system integrators with the possible users. So one of the big barriers is fragmentation. What can we do and what we try to do and what have we done? Putting together these stakeholders in our strategic communities, in doing the roadmaps. Some examples are, for example, relevant research and innovation projects that they were able to conceive collaboratively in the region, but putting our regional environment in cooperation with other regional environments. I can cite here some example of projects at various levels. For example, in Horizon Europe, our stakeholders are working on a relevant project on multi-sectorial digital platforms for circular economy, so an AI topic in this domain. Another project is about doing experiments of artificial intelligence also for sustainability. Then we work a lot and we got many projects in the region in the Interreg program, for example, in the area of green manufacturing. Let me also cite something that was promoted directly by the Lombardy region. So the Lombardy region is targeting the realization of a circular economy hub that is meant to be in the future a sort of demonstrator and pilot plants for companies that can there see and access novel technologies, novel AI technologies for sustainability and also other technologies. So the Lombardy region has funded public organization in the region to increase the TRL of solution in such a direction. These are solutions at ecosystem level.
Thanks so much, Giacomo. Sorry to cut you off. We are getting tight on time for this part of our session. So I want to go to the last question I have for each of you. This is going to be practice for our speed round because we are tight on time. So I'm going to ask you to answer this last question in, just as short as you can, 30 seconds or less. Laura, what's the role of collaboration? And I've heard across the board that collaboration is critical to success, working together to advance platforms, technologies. Talk about one quick example of the role of collaboration towards success.
Yes, thank you for the question. The collaboration for the circular economy is crucial since we can have the sharing of materials or resources in general between companies, between stakeholders and whatever. And for that, we need some tools and data management and the provisional model and so on. This is a part of collaboration, the technical part of the collaboration. On the other hand, I think, and we think as ENEA, that for the circular economy, for sustainability, we need a strong collaboration between stakeholders in order to understand and overcome also problems and barriers to move from the linear model to the circular one, and to share, for example, good practices and good example of circular economy.
Perfect. Laura, I apologize. I'm going to just cut you there, but wonderful and absolutely learning from one another. It's what we're here for today. Marco, as quick as you can, what's the best example of where we need to collaborate?
I would totally agree with what has been said. I mean, also in the field of hydrogen, I mean, in any field that needs extreme cooperation and research collaboration is crucial. What we are doing at SNAM is getting together multiple stakeholders in a platform that we call the innovation centers. So these are literally center of excellence joined by academia. So we have also here University of Bologna, but we are working with the Polytechnic, working in the US with Berkeley, with UC Irvine, and many other players. We're bringing together academia and industry to work together on technological solutions. And that's the way that we found to, as has been said, to increasingly scale up a technological solution and getting low TRL technologies up to the industrial level.
Perfect. Thank you, Marco. Great example. Allegra, you come to us from the University of Bologna. What's your favorite example of where collaboration can play a role?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And the first thing is that the University of Bologna, and in particular the ALMA AI Center, was born exactly with the aim of aggregating research within our community and territory. But probably the best example for this event is that our research group at the University of Bologna has actively collaborated in recent years with the École Polytechnique of Montréal for an exchange program, Italy-Québec, named in this case Algorithm and Systems for the Operational Planning in Industry. And this project supported a research collaboration between the University of Bologna and the École Polytechnique of Montréal on optimization techniques for scheduling industrial planning, with an active exchange of visiting professors, PhD students, and researchers in order to promote an active collaboration between Italy and Canada.
Perfect. Thanks, Allegra. And Giacomo, again, you get the last word. As quickly as you can, what is your favorite example of the role of collaboration in your experience?
I think I have already outlined, so I will be very fast. We have set up in our cluster what we call strategic communities, where companies, universities, academia, and associations come together first to define collaboratively their priorities at the strategic level. Second, to implement them in real projects. So this is what I can cite.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. You can take a break from your cameras for now, but don't go too far away, because I'll be bringing you back for the rapid fire round towards the end of the whole session. Up next, thrilled to welcome to the screen Francesco Gallo, Operations Director of R&D and Digital Transformation Manager at Italium Regeneration for our third Spark Talk. Francesco, I'll ask you to keep it to 5 minutes or less. Over to you. Take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us. I'm the operations director and the R&D responsible for Italium. What is our objective? Our objective is to practically make happen everyday circular economy. In fact, in our company, our company work basically on three main pillars of this business, because for us it's business: the waste management, dangerous waste management, and try to obtain from dangerous waste end of waste. And it's really important for us. We started from used oil refining. Please go on with the slides continuously, but the focus for us is circular economy. We started from the well-established business of used oil refining, and starting from this and using our two refineries. One refinery is in the north of Italy in Pieve in Lombardy, and the second one in the center of Italy in Ceccano, nearby Frosinone. And we use this as platform of continuous development. In fact, our company both then the business of purification, that is of regeneration of solvents, and then we go upstairs, upstream into the collection of the waste. What we experienced in the frame of circular economy is that it's really important to build a strong supply chain. Please go on with the slides. Every 10 seconds, change slides, because I would like to talk free. Because the important fact I would like to share with all of you is that in order to make happen circular economy, three pillars need to be applied. Otherwise, the business do not make happen. First pillar is every day we have to apply the extended regeneration concept. What it means? It means that we have to bridge different waste, obtaining end of waste. And it means that I can start from used oil, but finally at a certain point, I have to bridge to solvents. At a certain point, I have to bridge to asphalt. That's the idea, is that every day we have to think about new end of waste. And to do this, it is necessary as a second pillar to do research, to do innovation. To do innovation imply that you need to make open innovation. You need university, because today it's impossible to have all the skills and competencies inside your company. And so what we do is accelerate to make research with the main Italian university. I mean, Politecnico of Milano, Federico II of Naples, University of Calabria, University of Milan. But it's not enough, because another important pillar of our technological development is the digital transformation. I think that it's time for all the stakeholders of circular economy to create the digital entity of all the physical entities. In fact, an important issue in the frame of circular economy, managing waste, finally, because we are trying to capture value from waste, is the classification. So we need classification, track and trace, and warranty to the market with the finished products. It means that we have to trace, track, and to prove using the chemistry the fact that all we do respect the environment and all we do respect the health, the human health. And it's important to do this, to do analytical chemical analysis and to study it. Finally, we have a lot of data. So the point is that if you make happen the digital transformation through cloud, through IoT, and you finally apply machine learning and the artificial intelligence, you will capture other value and you can modify and improve your processes. And practically, this is our way of work. In fact, what we are doing now is the digital twin of all our processes. And important, least but not less important, is that it is necessary now to make happen the business platformization, because otherwise the resources in one country will finish. And in that case, you have a wonderful process, but you do not have your raw material. That is the waste. So what I think that all the stakeholders of the circular economy has to work in order to be platformized, in order that to capture the raw material, whatever they are, but in a global way, creating a platform, an open platform. This slide, please stop on this slide. This slide shows exactly what we would like to do. Please back in the previous slide, please back, because this is exactly the flow in which you can show that how we will implement, and we are implementing the artificial intelligence and machine learning. The idea is that to gather data from the refinery, from our processes, and then to use this data in models, in simulators, in a way that we can, let me say, simulate what could happen, and in case we can immediately use directly in the process this data. And now it's possible because we have a lot of computer calculation power that could be implemented.
Francesco,
Finally,
I have to jump in. I'm so sorry. We have to keep moving in our program. Your presentation has been wonderful. Do you have a final, just wrap up remarks you want to provide to the audience before we move on?
Yes, that to make happen circular economy, it is important that the policymaker help in the permitting processes that are so slow that sometimes we lose a lot of business opportunities. That's important. This is a message I would like to leave in this forum.
Perfect.
Policymaker, please facilitate the permitting processes.
Thank you for that call to action. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We're going to move along now to the next and our second panel of the second part of the session. And I'm going to invite a group of experts from Canada who, again, going to be digging into barriers we need to overcome and solutions being explored in AI and sustainability. So please welcome Florent Bouguin, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer from Optel Group, Marie Lapointe, Executive Director of Hydro-Québec, and Pierre Taillefer, National Lead Partner of BDO Canada's Risk Advisory Services Division and National Leader for Sustainability Consulting. Welcome, all three of you. I know I'm trying to drive a tight ship here. I want to make sure we get to all of our speakers, so I'm going to just start by asking you to try to keep your answers very short and tight, but of course we want to hear from all of you. I know you've got wonderful expertise to share. So Florent, I want to start with you. Can you please just in 1 minute or less describe your organization and what you're doing at a high level to advance digitalization for a more sustainable future?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone. Optel is a Canadian multinational company, certified B Corp, with 600 employees all across the globe. Optel traceability platform composed of both hardware and software solutions collect actionable data along the product journey, from raw materials to the end user, empowering businesses and consumers to confirm product origin, authenticity, and integrity, evaluate socio-economic and environmental impact, track transportation and distribution movement, and fourth, improve supply chain and operational performance. So Optel's track and trace technologies provide businesses, their partners, and their consumers with the information they can trust to make better informed decisions. It's the perfect playground to develop AI tools and to enable circularity and transition towards sustainable energy.
Thank you, Florent. Great overview. Marie, I'll go to you next. Quick overview of your organization and your role in digitalization and sustainable economy.
Well, my name is Marie Lapointe. I represent Hydro-Québec, which is an association of hydrogen producers, searchers, utilizators, distributors. So our role in EA, I would say, we want to implement green hydrogen because in Quebec, we have it's the perfect place to do it because we can produce green hydrogen with water electrolysis from renewable energy, and we have 97% of renewable energy. So Quebec is the place in America and the place also in Occident with Swedish to produce green hydrogen without carbon. We can produce hydrogen from hydroelectricity and from eolian and from solar, but also we can produce from dust and from biomass to produce methanization and also to produce syngas. So it's a big, big opportunity. Now, we had the presentation of Madame Zarzani earlier today on the advantage of Montreal. So Montreal and Quebec is the place for artificial intelligence. So there are already a lot of projects with Polytechnique, with Sherbrooke, and with Trois-Rivières on advanced materials and the way to store energy, because we can use hydrogen to store energy, and we can use it as a new vector of energy and as a raw material. So what do we need, and why I am in this panel, is that there is a tremendous opportunity to work together with university and collaborative R&D, use intelligence for that. And we need also to develop traceability, as Mr. Bougouin explained, because we need to develop transparency. And traceability is really key to certify our green hydrogen in America and in the world, and to show that it's really low carbon. But also it will be really useful in autarcic development and autarcic communities to measure their impact and to control their production and distribution. So it's a new area to manage energy, and we can do that in circular economy, because we can go from dust, produce methane, produce ethanol, produce hydrogen, and from ethanol we can even produce biocarburant, which is one of the great advantage
you're starting
of
to get into my next question, which is all about barriers and solutions. So I'll just get you to pause there. But a great overview.
That's okay. I had finished, because to me it's going all together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marie. So Pierre, I want to go to you. Just a quick 1-minute overview of your organization and your role in digitalization to enable sustainability.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. So BDO, for those of you who don't know, it's an accounting, tax, and advisory firm. I'm part of the advisory practice, and that's where our consulting services related to sustainability reside. We've made a significant investment. The firm has, over the last 5 years, within our group, at establishing an AI practice. And we have worked with a number of different organizations in various industries, including energy, natural resources, manufacturing and distribution, the public sector, financial sector, to develop machine learning applications. And our experience with our AI group is that the most effective way to get the most out of our clients' data is to develop predictive models to forecast trends, dips, maintenance requirements, other variables that impact productivity and the circular economy. And some specific examples, or actually what we want to do in using AI, is to uncover ways that it can work, or it can help better the lives of people, help people work better and accomplish tasks more efficiently. Again, covering ESG and the circular economy. And then just a couple examples of machine learning applications that we've developed and implemented with our clients. One application, machine learning, to assist in reducing our clients' impact on the environment from a carbon emissions perspective. Also looking at, in the energy sector, predicting energy requirements to be provided by smart grids that are able to partially match electrical demand to times when there's sun, when there's wind, and pull all of those pieces together to help an organization predict what is going to be required from an energy perspective. One significant issue that we've seen with our clients is their ability, or the difficulty, of pulling together all of the data related to their ESG programs and sustainability reports. So we've done a lot of work at implementing systems and automating processes to be able to consolidate data to report. And then finally, we've also worked with some internal audit groups within organizations to develop programs to audit ESG carbon footprints, as well as the effectiveness of diversity, equity, and inclusion HR programs, effectively using the machines to define the criteria to audit and to report on the results.
Great, thanks Pierre for that overview, and we're going to dig in right away now to some of those specific barriers and solutions you're each exploring. So Florent, I want to go back to you just to speak, give an example of a really critical barrier, one great example of a barrier or a solution that you're exploring with Optel.
A good question. Elizabeth. Before developing any AI tools, businesses and organizations should follow these 3 prerequisites, for which unfortunately barriers are there and pain points exist, but fortunately for which solutions and opportunities exist as well. First step, data capture. It is hard to know which data to capture and where to capture these data. For instance, do you need the timestamp? Do you need the geolocation of the product or the raw material you are tracing? Is it required to digitize paper processes or to connect to an enterprise resource planning system? All these answers are true and require fabulous agility and interoperability. Second step, data transformation. You have the data, but you need to transform them. Which format to follow? Which protocol to use? What is the security level or the privacy levels that you want to have? How to make the connection between all these data and how to make them available, ready to be digested. Third step, data value. You have the data are transformed, you can bring value. Now it is time to run AI. Maybe not, Elizabeth. Let's be patient a bit. What do you want to see from these data? What is the output? What is the value? And I strongly recommend to start humble with basics analytics. And then after that, you jump into the AI. So you understood that AI, it is a journey, and it is important to be resilient and to be patient. To you.
Thank you so much, Florent. Great examples of barriers and solutions. Marie, I want to come back to you. I heard Florent mention the issue of traceability. You also brought up in your opening that that's an important one to get at. Talk a little bit more about traceability or another barrier that you're looking to overcome at Hydro-Québec.
Yeah, sure. I think that what is critical, because the Canadian strategy of hydrogen has been launched last December, and in Quebec it's under development, and in every province. One thing is sure, we ask to Optel and to our norms, to institute, to be on the table of code and standards, to develop the things correctly. And why is it so important? It's because the customers, they will want to know, if they pay twice the price for the beginning to have green hydrogen, they will want to know, is it true? Where does it come from? What was the process to produce that? Who are the suppliers? So the customers now, they want to have demonstration of sustainability. So this is a great tool first that we have. Second, we want to decarbonize our economy and be carbon neutral by 2050. We need to reduce by 37% the GES in Quebec. So we need to have tools to have equivalence between GES and what is the consumption that we have and what is the megawatt. What is the energy that has been produced for the efficiency and to get the results. So our industry, we have cementeries in Quebec. You have that. We have steel plants. We have aluminum smelters. All those industries are willing to decarbonize and to have plans, but they will want to, one, receive credits, and two, have traceability, is for sure. The CO2 credits is the second biggest challenge that we have. We need to implement a similar system than in California, which is the equivalent of $170 per ton of credits, to be sure that the industry, they will see the decarbonation as an incentive, an advantage, and we need to coordinate that. The third thing I would say is collaborative R&D. We have in Quebec strong R&D capabilities with federal and Quebec governments. We have collaborative public-private, university, business. Let's come and work with Prima, with the Polytechnique, with Sherbrooke, with Université of Trois-Rivières, and the future zone of Bécancour, of innovation of Bécancour. I think that we need multi, as people discussed, multi-private public involvement, and also to be sure that we will close the loop and work all together to accelerate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marie. Pierre, you mentioned in your introduction the focus you've had on creating accessibility and diversity and inclusion. I wonder if you could, again, thinking of barriers that we need to address, speak a little bit about that opportunity.
Well, I can talk to what BDO is doing and what I've seen in our different clients. I just, first wanted to say the one barrier that we're working on is really helping. So we're a services firm. It's really helping our clients develop a relevant, quantitative, and appropriate sustainability program. So BDO itself is also enhancing its sustainability program, which includes inclusion, diversity, and equity as one significant aspect of our sustainability program. We have an inclusion, diversity, and equity officer. We have identified a number of programs within that space. And it's interesting because we see a lot of asks coming from our internal stakeholders. We talk about stakeholders, our employees wanting to know what BDO is doing from an inclusion, equity, and diversity perspective. And we're using the work that we do internally with our clients at helping them implement programs. We know there is a significant resource crunch right now, very difficult to find people, and ESG programs are a way to attract and to retain employees. And specifically, we see a significant interest in inclusion, equity, and diversity. And so really putting a focus on that in our program and using our experience internally, and also BDO, I am part of a global network using the global experience on IE&D to help our clients optimize their programs.
Thanks, Pierre, for that. Appreciate it. I know for myself personally, I see that challenge of accessibility, one that I really am keen to see addressed. So thanks for digging into that for me. Florent, I want to come back to you. Again, we're here at the Canada-Italy Forum. We're looking for opportunities to collaborate. What are great examples of where collaboration is key to success in your experience, or is really helping to drive forward the solutions that you're working on?
Yeah, I decided to share with you an example in the food and beverages industry. But first, as Marie explained to us, sharing data requires collaboration and trust, for sure. It's the basic. And trust into the data capture. It's one. Trust into the security and the privacy of the platform you're using, and trust in the way that these data are transformed. When you get the trust, it's great. So several silos are on the road due to competitive reasons. They don't want to share the data. Due to the absence of data, we don't have the data. We have holes. So there is an example of collaboration that I would like to share with you, coming from the deployment of a traceability solution within the beverage industry. Several farmers, several associations, and several distributors decided to group together to share data for a common goal. What was that goal? It was to promote the low carbon footprint of their products. And their products were coming from the same raw material. They were together on that. They all understood that they would benefit from the data sharing. With that, they were able to benchmark their performances. Good point. They were able to get market insights from the difference. They were able to collect data that were not accessible. So what were the results? They set the trend. They gave trust to their consumers, and they won market shares. On the top of that, they had a clear visibility on their product carbon footprint across its entire life cycle, scope 1, 2, and 3. They had a view of the supply chain anomalies and of the hotspots. Therefore, they worked together to reduce their carbon footprint, and they are now on their trajectory to meet their carbon neutrality corporate goals. Good job.
Thank you, Florent. Marie, coming back to you, most important opportunity to work together to see AI and digitalization as a more critical part of our sustainable future.
I think it's really to bring the brains together and to develop solutions for mobility and to develop solutions for mobility trains for marine, and especially I think that what Italy can bring, you are entrepreneur, you have a very strong manufacturing system, and you are also good marines with Magellan and Amerigo and Christopher Cole, you know. So I think that we should collaborate with universities to be sure that we will be able, with the CETA, to bring sustainable products and to demonstrate that between Europe and Quebec, we trade sustainable products, because we have the demonstration in megawatt, in the way it has been product, in the final product, in the impact of GES, that our products are sustainable. For example, we could produce altogether green ammonia, from green hydrogen, green ammonia, green ethanol, green methanol, and trade it. And you can help us also to see how can we measure that, how can we transport that, how can we distribute that until the consumers.
Thank you so much, Marie. Pierre, you get the last word for this part of the session.
All right.
Talk to us about that critical role of collaboration and how you're seeing that happen at BDO.
Right. So again, BDO is a services firm. I'm part of a global network and part of the global sustainability team, which includes BDO Italy, which is fairly advanced in terms of their sustainability service offering. What we're doing as a group is, again, developing internally, but also looking to use externally tools, artificial intelligence, as well as automation, to be able to help organizations develop the sustainability strategy, identify KPIs, and report on performance. So our objective on a global basis is to find a tool or to develop one. And I talked about our digital practice that may be one of the solutions for us to develop a tool that will be able to learn, and based on data brought in from external sources, help us identify what are relevant KPIs for BDO and for our clients. And then I would say one other aspect that one other objective that the firm has on a global basis is zero carbon for BDO by 2050. And for our organization to be able to do that, we're going to need to implement, again, systems, and artificial intelligence is going to be part of, or normally would be part of, the systems that are going to be used to help us identify what we need to do as an organization, and help us learn as well from our actions. Are they helping us achieve the zero carbon by 2050? That is a significant collaboration that BDO has on a global basis. And then again, like I said, also using those tools to be able to work with our clients.
Fantastic. Pierre, thank you so much. Marie, Florent, I'll let you take a break, but don't go too far. I'm going to bring you back at the very end for our speed round. We've only got about a little more than 10 minutes left in our program. What I want to make sure we have time for is the last two fantastic Spark Talks that we have lined up for our session. So up next, I'm going to be introducing Marco Bernardi to join me on the screen. I've asked if we could just change up the order of our agenda just a little bit and go from Marco and then to Sam. Ramadori, and then we'll go with our speed round with the time we have left when we bring the panelists back. So just a heads up to our tech team and our speakers, I'm messing around with your agenda. I just want to make sure we get a chance to hear from everybody. So up next for our fourth Spark Talk speaker, my pleasure to welcome Marco Bernardi, Manager of the Research, Innovation and Industrialization Office at CAP Holding. Marco, over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning and good evening to everyone. So my name is Marco. I come from the Research and Innovation Department of Gruppo CAP. So next slide already, please. Gruppo CAP is a public company. It's the public utility providing the water service for the metropolitan city of Milan area. So about 150 municipalities around the main city of Milan in the northern of Italy, you see in the map, for about 2 million people served. In our service, being also a public company, to increase the sustainability of the overall work is of paramount importance. Next slide, please. For this topic, we are strongly working on circular economy to bring circular economy in the water service. And for this aspect, the simplest solution is to try to recycle water. Reuse water that has been treated and is so safe for reuse is a great asset for agriculture to find new sources of water, alternative to potable water, to secure potable water for other more important uses, and also to bring nutrients to the field, so to increase the potential of agriculture. Obviously, the reused water has to be made in a safe way, so following all the procedures defined by the WHO and the European Commission. Next slide, please. In this topic, we are working in the framework of a larger European funded project, which is called Digital Water City. The project aims to bring digital solutions to improve the water service. What we do with the other Italian partners of the project is to develop actually a platform of digital solutions that can serve the water reuse practice. So next one. The digital solutions are different, are a platform and they are touching different sides of the water reuse. For example, they are touching the early warning system. So the capacity of measure the quality of the water that we are giving for reuse using different digital tools such as sensors, but also using artificial intelligence to treat the data produced from those sensors in order to learn with machine learning system and be able to give warnings to the water service company, but also to the farmers when the water quality is good or not for being reused for irrigation. Next one. What we want to do is also to give services to the farmers in order to help them use wisely this water. For example, by monitoring the real need for water of the fields by using sensors, for example, to measure humidity, but also unmanned systems such as drones, really to map the need on the field for water and nutrients. Next slide. All this information from the two sides, so water service and agriculture, come together in what we call a matchmaking tool. So it's a platform. It will be developed as in the shape of a web app. You see some screenshots that will put together all the information from both sides in the idea of acting the water reuse practice in a demand-offer way, so that the water service can create, let's say, the water of the quality needed for agriculture when the farmer needs it, in order also to improve the overall energy consumption of all this practice. So this is an example of how we try to put together water, circular economy, and AI in a new manner. So that's it from my side.
Marco, thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. As I said, I'm going to just change things up a little bit. And we do have Sam Ramadori, the president of Brainbox AI, ready to give his Spark Talk next. So Sam, I welcome you to the virtual stage and over to you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll try to respect that time. I know we're getting down to the last few minutes. I'm Sam Ramadori with Brainbox AI. We're a Montreal-based startup that focuses on applying autonomous artificial intelligence to the real estate sector, which is usually cited as one of the big 5 climate challenges that we need to address. The other ones include, well, like this talk, the energy transition, food production, transportation, etc. If we could just go to the next slide. So buildings, I think we've seen this stat in a number of places, account for upwards of 38% of GHG emissions. And the single biggest contributor to this is the heating and cooling of our homes and workplaces and institutional buildings, etc. The double challenge here is that rapid urbanization and rising temperatures is going to make this problem even worse. The often cited statistic is that in the next 40 years, we're going to be building a New York City-sized pack of buildings every month. So the issue is just getting bigger. And one of the challenges with the built environment is, say, as opposed to cars going from internal combustion engines to electric, is the fact that we as everybody, users of cars, we replace them in a certain cycle, I don't know, 7, 10 years. And so there's that opportunity in the next cycle of replacement to go get the greener version. So electric vehicles, maybe one day self-driving cars. The problem with the built environment is that the buildings that we have today are going to remain. I unfortunately give the bad news that the buildings will be here longer than everyone on this call. They're not being torn down, they're not being replaced. So we have to do something with the buildings that we have in place. And still today, it's been challenging finding truly scalable solutions where we can impact just large portfolios of buildings to make them more energy efficient in a very quick fashion. If it can go to the next slide. So the idea at Brainbox that we started working on about 5.5 years ago was to use autonomous artificial intelligence. We show the little video clip on the left as the example of it being applied to self-driving cars. Well, can we use that same autonomous artificial intelligence to make buildings far more intelligent than they are today around energy usage and energy peak, etc. And so that was what we worked on. If we could just go to the next slide. Why use autonomous AI? We talk about some of the major challenges of making buildings more efficient. One, every building is different from another. So no cookie cutter approaches are very difficult to implement. And here where AI can really help, and if we could switch the next slide, is the fact that we can use AI implemented in the system of a building in order to learn how that building operates down to the room by room basis, using the energy, the data from the building, and then marrying it with the external data that impacts the building. So weather information, occupancy, electricity or energy costs, the source of that electricity, is it fossil fuel or renewable, etc. So you're able to do this at scale, right? We don't have to send teams of 10 people at buildings. We can implement the AI, and so certainly we can hit many more buildings. If we go to the next slide, to leverage other rich data sets. This is a topic that's been covered a few times on this panel, this session. Today, a building just looks at information inside of itself. So the thermostat on the wall, all the equipment giving data, but the vast majority of buildings have no clue about the weather outside, current and forecast. They have no idea of where the energy is coming from. Is it clean or is it renewable or is it fossil fuel driven? And so bringing that all together was a huge opportunity. So if we can go to the next slide. Sorry, and this is a visual representation of that. So taking that building data and bringing all this external data together in real time, 24/7. And then if we go to the next slide. So, and then the last thing is once the AI is able to learn the building and understand what's happening in the building and what's going to happen in the future, call it the next few hours, it can then turn around, and we can then turn around and use the autonomous decision making. And that is really exciting because a building has typically hundreds of individual pieces of equipment. There's no way on a human basis we could be controlling each of them every 5 minutes to decide what the best outcome. Well, here the AI can. So go right down to the individual equipment. Maybe we could skip the next slide or flip to the next slide. And be in real time, you know, understanding the weather, what's coming, the occupancy, et cetera, and deciding every 5 minutes, well, I need to increase that fan speed, I need to decrease that air temperature, et cetera. Something that if we tried to replace this level of granularity would take 50 engineers living in that building every day, which is obviously not a feasible option. If we could just skip to the next slide. So then when we talk about scale and impact and scale, the next slide as well, please. The improvements in the energy efficiencies of the buildings are very, very meaningful. So with something that doesn't require upfront investment, really a very modest installation cost, we're getting energy consumption reductions upwards of 25%, and obviously a very similar impactful amount of the decrease in the carbon footprint of the building. All of that with a really attractive ROI to the customer because there's not that big upfront investment. So you could see the attractiveness, it helps everybody, right? It's not a sacrifice financially to get an outcome, sustainability, everything is married together. And then lastly, one more slide. When we think about scale, you know, we've been in the market just a little bit over 2 years, and we're really growing our install base globally. You know, this despite the restrictions we've had around COVID and limitations around travel. We're really starting to, or are installing this technology in many countries around the world, and this footprint continues to grow. And one more slide, and then I'll finish it there. Oh, actually, sorry, I didn't have that extra slide, so I'll finish it there. But thank you for the opportunity to present it. I found today's discussion, you know, so many exciting things happening. So great news.
Thank you so much, Sam. Great presentation. Okay, we are in the home stretch. Things are going to get exciting. They're going to get a little crazy. So I'm now going to invite back to the screen all 7 of our speakers from the panel. So that's Laura, Florent, Marco, Marie, Allegra, Pierre, Giacomo. I'm going to invite all of you to join us back on the screen. This is for the speed round. I've got a timer, so I'm really going to be keeping tight time. I'm going to ask you each one question, and that one question is, what is the one key action that has to be taken in the next 10 years to advance AI and digitalization for a more sustainable future? One key action in the next 10 years. You've got 30 seconds. I've got a timer. All right, Laura, you are first. Do we have you? Go.
Yeah, thank you. From my point of view, the point is what artificial intelligence can do for the sustainability and circular economy. Sharing data, sharing tools, and let us understanding what we are doing and where we are moving and monitoring them.
Perfect, Laura, thank you. You were on time. Great call to action for our audience. This is to inspire and to incite action. Florent, you're next. Go. Do we have Florent? Okay.
I was on mute. Sorry, I was on mute. So yes, I would say that it is critical to take into consideration that digitization could have a negative impact on the planet. For instance, blockchain is a nightmare and a disaster, so very bad environmental footprint and on the energy usage. So what I would say, one key action is that I would share to decision maker: be honest, be educated, be authentic when you choose your technology tool.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Florent. Marco, I'm going to go to you next. One action, 30 seconds. Give it to us.
Thank you. So the objective, in my opinion, is that we need to keep, as far as hydrogen and sustainability is concerned, we need to keep the technological and advance that we have in Europe and in North America. So what we need to do, public monies are coming for an energy transition. There is investments going on. we need to be wise in what we invest. We need not to make the same mistakes we did for solar power, for example. We need to keep those knowledge and we need to keep those competences close and share them effectively.
Thank you, Marco. Perfect. Marie, you're up next. One key action. Go.
Yes, I think that we need to measure progress. Okay, we need to measure the level of implementation of our energy transition. We need to measure our efficiency, energy efficiency, progress, our mobility progress. Oxidi said less car at the beginning of the day, maybe it's the view. We need to measure the progress of our decarbonation on a transparent manner.
Perfect, Marie. Thank you. Allegra, you're up. One action.
Thank you. And in my opinion, a key action to advance the AI digitalization for a more sustainable future is an active collaboration of all the main stakeholders involved. So an active collaboration among citizens, companies, and policymakers at national and international level to help researchers and companies to develop more precise and effective AI models in order also to achieve the European and international targets on energy sustainability.
Thank you, Allegra. Pierre, one action. You're up.
I'm up. One key action is investing in AI approaches to ESG, and there have been some studies that indicate that there's some very positives, but also some negatives to using artificial intelligence. So I think there really needs to be investment looking at what are the most beneficial AI technologies that can be used to benefit the entire population and not have an impact on, for example, some poorer countries. AI has a negative impact and creates inequality. So it's really looking at what is the best for everybody. And also, I would think that there needs to be some regulation, supervision over how AI is used, and depending where it's used from an ES&G perspective.
Thanks, Pierre. You snuck in 2 actions. Good job. Giacomo, you are last but certainly not least. One action we need to take in the next 10 years.
Okay, I think that we have to work at the business model level. So technologies are needed to revolution the way we produce and we consume. And only in this way we can have a real impact. We need to contaminate, promote cross-fertilization, bring their social research, something like that, but at business model level.
Perfect. Thank you all so much to our fantastic speakers. What an incredible way to end our program today with those 7 calls to action, actually 8 calls to action from our panelists. Thank you again to our speakers for making this session possible. Thank you to our sponsors who've made this event possible. Thank you to the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Canada for hosting this incredible event. And of course, to the organizers, Danielle, Monica, and the wonderful TAC Delivery team. And finally, thank you to all of our audience members for tuning in. This is the close of our session focused on energy transformation and a circular economy. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. And it was a privilege to spend the last 2 hours with you. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much to all our speakers and panelists. Thank you, Elizabeth. We heard a lot of interesting thoughts on the role that public and private actors can play to jointly foster innovation. From a technical standpoint, while we are faced with increasing complexity, novel approaches, methodologies, and tech stacks will allow us to keep up and provide ways to solve well-known challenges. In case you missed some parts of today's roundtable, we'll have a chance to hear a summary from our rapporteurs tomorrow. As a reminder, we'll start bright and early, 8:15 Montreal time, with a roundtable on digital health, which will be followed by our closing plenary session. I look forward to seeing you all there and hearing more from our speakers on thought-provoking analyses and in-depth thoughts. Once again, thank you for participating and see you tomorrow.